I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Welcome to the International Saturday Morning Community Broadcast. We try to inform, we try to inspire, and we try to engage you in the movement for social change and social justice. Today, we dedicate this week's broadcast to a number of faithful PUSH people. One, many of you may or may not know, Pam Person worked with PUSH for Excellence. She was a volunteer, retired teacher. She made her transition this week, and of course, many of you have either spoken to her or she was the first person you saw when you entered the building. Miss Ellen Dickey, who was our receptionist par excellence, and so we're praying for that family. Miss Ellen Dickey made her transition this week. Also, one of the preeminent organizers, one of the preeminent developers, one of the preeminent property managers, one of the preeminent really a pastor of all, pastor. Dr. Leon Finney made his transition this week, and so we're praying for the Finney family, his brother and his sisters, as well as his daughter and grandchildren and son-in-law. We're praying for the entire Finney family, and we're really praying for the community. Dr. Finney had such a tremendous impact on Chicago, national, local politics. He was the organizer. He was the go-to guy to get that vote out and get the turnout. And he was a political strategist. We will miss Dr. Finney. This week, we have a lot of information that we want you to connect with. We want to make sure that you know you only have 2 more weeks to be counted in the census. It's so important that you get counted. Please fill out your census form. Make sure everyone in your family, everyone in your neighborhood, everyone on your job has already been counted. The second thing we want you to do is make sure you're registered. Check your voter registration. Wherever you are in the country, make sure that you are registered and still ready to vote, whether it's early vote, mail-in vote, or in-person voting. Make sure that you know you're on the books and that you are registered. If you have any problems, call us at Rainbow Push. Our number is 773-FREEDOM, 773-FREEDOM, and we can inform you, or we will direct you if you're not in Illinois. We'll direct you to the appropriate election office to make sure that you are ready to vote. Some states have early voting. We will be letting you know. For example, North Carolina has already started early voting. Make sure you know whether or not your state allows for early voting. The third thing we want you to do, we want you to become a part of PUSH. Become a member, a card-carrying member of Rainbow Push. All you have to do is make sure that you go to rainbowpush.org, you become a member, or call us 373-3366, 773-373-3366, and we'll take your membership on the phone. Or you can simply text the word PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444. Text the word PUSH to 41444. That's all you need to do. We have a number of events that will be coming up. You will hear about more and more each and every week. We want you to get involved, get inspired, and keep pushing for change.
All right, now I need y'all to make a little noise. Come on, put your hands together real quick, real quick. 1, 2, 3, hey, hey. Let's go. Everybody clap your hands. Everybody clap your hands. Yeah, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Wait, everybody just, hey. Wait. All right, now this song is only gonna work if you move around a little bit. She gotta move around a little bit. Look at the person next to you and say, get loose, get loose. I know it's early in the morning, but get loose. Let's try one more time, band. I think they're ready for it. Hey! 1, 2, 3, hit it! Let's go! Everybody clap your hands. There you go, there you go. Come on. It's just real old school. Let's get it. Yeah, yeah. Okay, when I think, everybody let's say, when I think about Jesus, you can join and all he's done for me. Hey, hey, once was lost, but now I'm found. Hey, was blind, but now I see. I don't see you putting your hands together. If you can't tell it like I can, hey, what the Lord has done. There you go, there you go. Yeah, hey, so let me help you understand. Hey, the victory he won. Hey, hey, and this is what I need you to do. Everybody, 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 put your fists in the air. Hey, so put your fists in the air. To get it up right here. Get it up right here. Now everybody like this. Like this. There you go, like this. Now like this. I need you real quick. This is what you do. Now free. Now dance like victory. Hey, hey, everybody dance like you got the victory. Yeah. Hey, hey, yeah. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. All right, we're going to try this one more time. See if you can join us. When I think about Jesus and all he's done for me. Y'all can probably join that along. Once was lost, but now I'm found. There you go. Was blind, but now I see. Hey, hey, you can't tell it like I can. Yeah, say what the Lord has done. Put your hand, put your hand, put your hand. Everybody put your hand. Hey, so let me help you understand. There you go. Hey, the victory he's won. Hey, one more time, we're gonna do it like this. Everybody put your fist in the air. Say, put your fist in the air. Put your fist in the air. This is for freedom right here. Now wave it like this. Like this. Like this. Like this. Like this. Now just freeze and dance like victory. Hey, there you go. I know it's early in the morning, but we're gonna dance a little bit. Yeah. Hey, I see dance like victory. Hey, just dance. Just dance. There you go. All right, that's how we're gonna do this real quick, real quick. Are my people in the house today? Rainbow Push, are you in the house today? Huh? Are you excited to be here? Are you excited to be pushing on today? I said, are you excited to be pushing on? This is how we're gonna do it like this. I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna say, hey, why you praise the Lord like that? And all you say, he's been too good, can't turn back. Y'all got that? I say, why you praise the Lord like that? You say, been too good, can't turn back. So it sounds like this. Why you praise the Lord like that? Been too good, can't louder. Why you praise the Lord like that? Been too good. Little bit low. Say, why y'all praise the Lord like that? Been too good, say, why you praise the Lord like that? Okay, real quick. Now, ladies, are you in the house today? Ladies, where my ladies at? Make some noise. I said, ladies, make some noise. I said, ladies, yeah. Where y'all at today? Right here. I said, ladies, yeah. Where y'all at, huh? Right here. I said, ladies, yeah. Where y'all at today? Right here. I said, ladies, yeah. Where y'all at, huh? Right here. Say it like this. Why y'all praise the Lord like that, ladies? Been too good, can't hold back. Why y'all praise the Lord like that? Been too good, can't hold back. Why y'all praise the Lord like that? Been too good, can't hold back. Say, why y'all praise the Lord like that? Now dance like victory. Hey, 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 hey. Come on, ladies, make some noise in here. Hey, wait. Yo, fellas in the house today. I say fellas. Hey, all right, fellas, let me hear you make some noise. Say fellas. Where y'all at today? Right here. Fellas, say fellas. Where y'all at today? Right here. All my big men are gone. Where y'all at today? Right here.
Very happy to be here. I'm a CPA here in Atlanta. I'm retired from the Internal Revenue Service. I worked there just about 44 years and retired about 7 years ago. So I do tax returns and private practice here in Atlanta. Number one, when it comes to tax returns, farming income and expenses are no different than the income and expenses, say, from a Schedule C sole proprietorship, a Schedule E rental property, or even a corporation. You have income, then you have expenses, you have net income and net loss, and you pay tax on the net income. So some of those deductions are the same. But my general advice is, if you're doing the tax return yourself, use tax prep software. This is just general information. I mean, tax laws are so complicated now. You could do it by hand, but why would you want to? So buy some quality tax prep software to walk you through it, such as H&R Block or TurboTax, And once you click on the screen that says you're a farmer, then the software will lead you through the correct deductions, assuming you put in the correct amounts or the correct circumstances. It'll compute all those taxes for you. So my first piece of advice is buy some software and do it. And that way you won't miss any deductions or anything that I glance over, it'll cover it for you. The next item of just free advice is if you're farming and you own 30, 40, 400 acres or whatever, you specialize in farming. You specialize in livestock, animals, farming, and all that. You do not have to be a CPA in order to get these deductions. You just need to know a good professional. So if you're not going to do it yourself, find someone that's competent and knows a lot about farming issues. And then my last piece of advice is, I'm just going to go over some key terms because we don't have the time to do in-depth discussion, but go ahead and write down those terms and then you can research it later on. www.irs.gov is your best friend. You can just about find anything you want on irs.gov. It's just like any other business, any other like Schedule C, Schedule E, corporation. You have two types of deductions when you farm. First you have income, and just about everything is income unless it's specifically excluded, and there are a few exclusions, so all the money you get is income basically. And then there's two types of deductions. There's current cost and there's capitalized costs. Current costs are the costs that you deduct in the year that you incur them, and then capitalized costs relate to that equipment or those buildings that you buy that will last over a period of time, and you deduct a portion of that in future years. So when it comes to current expenses, everything, and I do mean everything associated with the farm, is deductible. If you have equipment, farm equipment, everybody does. No one uses draft horses or the Percherons or the Belgian drafts anymore. Everyone has tractors. If you buy diesel fuel or if you buy gasoline and you pay that 38 cents a gallon excise tax, that road tax, and you're using that diesel on the farm and strictly for the farm, then you should talk to your tax preparer and get a refund of that amount.
What if you are multiple years behind on filing taxes for your farm? What will be your recommendation on how to get out of that hole? What are the penalties associated with such?
Go get that last letter you got from the IRS. They've written you about once every 45 days. Don't shake your head. They did. I know. It comes out in 45-day cycles. Get that last letter. Respond to that letter. The worst thing you can do, the absolute positively worst thing you can do is when you get a letter from the IRS inquiring about your tax position, is to not respond. The worst thing you can do, I'm sure nobody on this phone has done it, on this line has done it. The worst thing you can do is put that letter on the dresser and just stack them up there 45 days and don't open them, because bad things will happen a couple of years down the road. And if you have the ability to prepare those returns and file them, go ahead and do them.
Make sure you join the Rainbow Push Coalition, because we are a membership-based organization, and the only way that we can keep presenting you with this information that no other group is pushing out there. There aren't really other groups that are having calls and webinars of this nature, specifically targeting Black farmers, providing sort of financial information that's needed to keep us all going and sustained during this period of time. Go to rainbowpushatlanta.org. Make sure you get your membership, and also our Southeastern Regional Conference, or Creating Opportunity Conference, will be on October 8th and 9th of this year. So it's coming up in a little less than a month. If you would like more information on that, email our program coordinator, Ms. Trina Heathington, at theheathington at rainbowpush.org, or email me, rpatillo, at rainbowpush.org, and we'll be sure that we can get you involved for those upcoming events.
I'm sitting next to my grandfather, Frederick Harris.
I'm sitting next to my dear grandson, Darius Harris. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. We fought the civil rights movement, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Deep South. When I was a little boy, 8, 9, 10 years old, when we would go downtown and my mother wanted to use the bathroom, she had to go downstairs in the courthouse in a dungeon in the basement. And I couldn't understand why can't my mother use the bathroom? See, these are the kind of things that made me angry. And when I did go into the military and I had time to spend in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, I seen a different type of racism. And that racism was right in your face. I seen people get beat. I seen them get dog sicked on them. And I said, why? I was angry, I was embarrassed, I was hurt. And I still carry that hurt with me today because I'll never forget it.
It definitely does make me angry that the world was actually like that at a point in time. I couldn't imagine living like that. I would be angry every day.
That anger and that hurt never goes away, and that'll be with me for the rest of my life. The people are angry, they're tired of the Democrats and they're tired of the Republicans. I tell people all the time, you had the Democratic Party over here, you had the Republican Party over here, and you had the people in the middle. Politics needs to be given back to the people, not these parties. And that's what happened here in Trumbull County. That's why a traditionally Democratic county went for Donald Trump. The key to the Democratic Party in the state of Ohio is the black vote and the unions. Don't take our vote for granted. Let them win it without us. That's the power of the black vote.
My first vote actually was President Obama back in 2012. I was just graduating high school. I felt proud when Obama got elected because he actually gave me hope that actually a black man could actually get that high up. I kind of don't see that happening for another 100 years.
This is where we disagree a little bit. It can happen if you make it happen. That's called leadership. You have to step forward. You know, my grandson tells me he's not interested in politics. And I explained to him, everything that takes place in the United States of America is under a politician.
Since 2012, every single politician basically, they say one thing and we're waiting.
See, this is where we disagree. I hear what you're saying. So you know what you do? You go out and you make them change.
The current president, I mean, he's, the way he acts is nuts. But, But me personally, I like the way he acts because it's like he's not afraid. I feel he's the best candidate because to me, the Democratic Party, they don't have anybody in my eyes really that's gonna really push anybody.
He doesn't understand the effect that the stuff that comes out of his mouth. And if we're not careful, he's gonna destroy the United States of America. I think we got a political turmoil now, and I think history will look back on us in this time and say, wow, what happened? What do I derive the most pleasure from? Debating. I hate to say it, but I like to debate. Well, I like to talk to people like my grandson and them, and I like to go back and forth.
My name is Darius Harris.
My name is Fred Harris.
And this is our brief but spectacular take
on the old and the new.
Good morning. We are in the midst of a major drive to get more members, more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those incarcerated, change the policies that impact students attending colleges and universities, if you want to be a policymaker, then you need to join Rainbow Push and join by paying your $35 right now. Some of you watch us every week. You listen to us on the radio. You're viewing us in social media. We need you to become a member. It's only $35 a year. If you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, we've awarded more than $10 million to scholars year to date. What do you have to do to give and support Push? It's really very simple. You can go to rainbowpush.org if you're on a computer and press donate. Give any amount. Every dollar is important. You want to talk to somebody, call us at 773-256-2775. You can give right now, any denomination that you choose. You can text the word PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444. Text on your cell phone. Most of you have a cell phone. Just text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving. Or call us 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and just press donate. wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we're happy to have you join us at this National Electeds Public Official Virtual Town Hall with Rainbow Push Coalition under the leadership of Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. And this, once again, is another great event organized by our dear friend, Shelley Davis. We want to go ahead and hear from our first elected official. We have here from Harris County, Texas, the commissioner of Harris County, Texas, our brother Rodney Ellis. Rodney.
Reverend, there are hundreds of Black county officials across the country. Many of us don't realize how much power we have. I'm an ex-city council member. I walked out of being third in seniority in the Texas Senate, 26-year career, to join the Harris County Board of Commissioners, 5-person governing board, $5 billion we spend. Is tremendous power. And we are doing as much as we can to set the standard, to try to be as progressive as our friends over in King County, Seattle, named initially after a slaveholder. Then they changed it to named it after Martin Luther King. And we are using the power we have. We don't do absentee mail-in ballots for everybody. For people like me, now that I'm 66, I can do a mail-in ballot. I did it first time in my life. We're fighting with our Secretary of State, David, right now, because we decided we take CARES money during the pandemic and send an application for a mail-in ballot to every registered voter in Harris County. Now, I just got one from Trump the other day, sending me one, a mail-in ballot, so I could register. I could get a mail-in ballot and vote for him. But the state's trying to fight us on doing it. My point is, in county government, when Shelley called me, I agreed to get on this call when Reverend said do it, because so many of us in county government don't realize the power we have, the power to do programs to help minority and women-owned businesses with spending, the power over the vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellis. Next, we will hear Cook County Clerk, Ms. Karen Yarborough. Clerk Yarborough, God bless you, and good morning to you.
Well, good morning to all of you. And Reverend, good to see you. Even though I can't touch you, but good to see you this morning. Good to see all of you. I'm Karen Yarborough, and I'm the first African-American and first woman actually to serve in this seat. And of course, we oversee elections. Yes, lots going on in Cook County, but for me, there's a lot of good things going on in Cook County. We dodged a bullet in the spring with our election cycle. There were those who wanted us to consider changing, pushing the election forward because of the pandemic. I'm glad we stuck to our guns and went ahead and pulled off that election. Today, we're working furiously on making sure that November is going to be a good election for not just those people who want to vote, but for our employees. We have plenty of PPE stocked. Thankfully, we did not have that in the spring, but thankfully we did not have anybody that succumbed to this horrible virus. Many of you know, or maybe you don't, we have voting in the jails now, working very closely with my counterpart in the city of Chicago. We've been working very, very well with city of Chicago, with Lance Gaw and their team. And we got new machines. And thankfully, we can vote by mail in Illinois, and we don't need an excuse to vote by mail. But that's where I think all this noise is coming from as it relates to vote by mail and who can do it and what have you, what's happening in Washington out of the White House. So what we're doing is having virtual workshops to talk with individual clerks and committeemen all across Cook County to make sure that they're clear on what can and cannot happen. I had someone call me just the other day to say that on a clerk's website in the south suburbs, they had something that said that people who were formerly convicted felons, they couldn't vote. That is not true in Illinois. If they've served their time, they can pick up application, they can sign up, and they can vote in the elections. So, this disinformation and misinformation campaign that's going on on both Twitter and Facebook and all of these other places, we are finding ourselves doing a fight there to make sure that people understand that we are the trusted source as it relates to voting. We're already seeing and hearing about some things coming down the pike, but we are prepared in Cook County to fight this. And so far, I know we've received about 240,000 applications for vote by mail. We just found out just the other day that Union Station and also the Metro, they're going to allow us to use their venues as for our drop-off boxes. We have 50 drop-off boxes throughout Cook County that will be in our early voting sites. They will be inside. The fact that I have to say that should tell you that, there are people who are saying they're sitting out in the middle of maybe Lake Street somewhere, Michigan Avenue. They are not there. They are inside of the polling places, and there will be a person assigned to them there. So we're prepared. We also have one of the foremost folks, best cybersecurity election experts that we share with the city of Chicago, who is scouring our websites and our information channels on a daily basis. It's unfortunate that we have to fight this pandemic as well as fight folks from the White House as well. But we know what we're dealing with here, and I believe that we are prepared.
Before we move on, I just want to say, and I hope people will appreciate it, because Commissioner Ellis alluded to it and Clerk Yarborough spoke about it. These are very important positions that they hold that can make a difference. And I think we have to be reminded, when we had thousands of Black elected officials in the South at Reconstruction, many of them were in the positions you all were in. So it wasn't just about taking folk out of the House and Senate, because they knew you all had positions that actually have real on the ground influence when it comes to this. Trayvon Martin's mother ran for Miami-Dade County Commissioner. People said, why don't you run for something bigger? Mm-hmm. And she said, because these are the positions that make the most difference. Unfortunately, she lost more than 300 votes. By the way, she told me yesterday that whoever the authority is there's 6,000 uncounted ballots because they were postmarked on time but arrived late because of the post office. So they're not going to count those other 6,000 in Miami-Dade County that might make the difference in her election. But I remind people, and Todd, people call us all the time. People call me people we know with political aspirations. Mark, I want to run for U.S. Senate. I'm like, I don't know if this is where you start. No. But, you know what I'm saying? Right. But, why you going, and they say, why you going to steal my joy and keep me from being great? No, start here at this level, and you'll be surprised how much of a difference a U.S. Senator is not able to do in a voter suppression moment with the Postal Service, what you all can do specifically. That's not in a U.S. Senator's lane. So, folks, we're talking to people today who are going to make a very, very significant difference this November. Here, we're going to stay in Cook County. Our brother is here, Cook County Commissioner, my dear friend, school teacher as well. That's how we met, and union organizing for teachers, one who's always been dedicated to his people. My dear brother, Brandon Johnson, Cook County Commissioner. Hey, brother.
Hey, good morning. Together, with the work that Rainbow Push Coalition has been a part of, I'm deeply very humbled and honored to be in this capacity. as a Cook County Commissioner. Mark, as you know, you and I sort of came up through the ranks together fighting to end school privatization and making sure that there are Black educators that are in front of our children. And the attacks that we've experienced within public sector has been real. As you alluded to earlier, the attack on the Postal Service, that's an attack on Black labor. The attack on public education, that's an attack against Black families. The attack on healthcare, that's an attack on Black liberation. You know, one of the things that I'm very impressed in this moment is our renewed commitment and fight for Medicare for all. As you know, Mark, and folks on this call, Cook County, that is one of the largest entities that we are responsible for, is for the healthcare. And we serve families in Cook County, whether they have health insurance or not. But I'm reminded of the Black liberator, of course, Fred Hampton, who was for Medicare for all before it was a thing, when health clinics were established in our communities. That's a direct correlation or connection of our plight and our fight for liberation and our desire to secure healthcare. We obviously know that Reverend Jackson ran very courageously at a time in which these ideas were not necessarily seen as popular. But before progressive politics was a thing, we know that single payer and healthcare for all is deeply connected to our desire for liberation. I would also just note that I believe it was W.E.B. Du Bois that said that public education at the expense of the state, particularly in the South, after all, is a Negro idea. So in other words, what I'm getting at is that of all the major things that we are fighting for in this moment, access to transportation, healthcare, education, jobs, and housing, these are all connected to the hope and the promise of liberation for our people. We know this, of course, was part of our platform during and after Reconstruction. And so we are obviously in a moment, I think, as our brother Commissioner Ellis has already articulated, that at the county level, we have an incredible opportunity to actually not just lift up the voices of families who are in desperate need of true liberation, but we have the opportunity to actually legislate our liberation. And so that's why, and I thank Rainbow Push Coalition for being a supporter of this resolution. And it was called, Mark, the Justice for Black Lives Resolution, where we are calling for the redirecting of dollars that continue to go into prisons, jails, incarceration, and policing, to redirect those dollars into the things that we know matter. And that's housing, healthcare, jobs, transportation, all of the things that actually can bring liberation to our people. The last thing that I'll say is, I know our sister lost by a few votes in Miami-Dade County. Cook County is the second largest county in the country. It's a multi-billion-dollar budget. Half of the people who live in Cook County cannot afford their rent. As we prepare for November 3rd, Reverend Jackson always reminds us, it's not just the what, it's not just the who, that we're voting for, it's the what we're voting for. And what we are voting for is to make sure that people can afford to live in their communities, that public safety is reimagined, and that we're not over-policed, and hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars are going into our incarceration, while the defunding of our schools and healthcare continues to be the norm. And so I won by, I believe, 426 votes. That campaign that I ran we would not have been successful if it were not for people like Reverend Jackson and those that were very clear a generation ago, before I was born, to make sure that we're actually fighting for the things that matter most to our people. So I'm looking forward to a larger discussion today, but I'm most excited about the youth voices that are being raised in this moment, where you have 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old organizers and activists who have imbibed the spirit of the generation before them and lifting up the consciousness of America, and not just saying that Black lives matter, but making sure that our budgets reflect those values.
our sister, who's a national political organizing director. We're going to hear a few words from her now. Sister Mutoni Wambu Kral. Sister, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
It's very close. Mathoni Wambu Kral. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mathoni. Thank you, Mathoni. We'd love to hear from you now. How are you?
Well, thank you, Reverend Thank you, Reverend Thomas. I'm dug in. We came out of a week of Trump revisionist history. That's me being tactful as well. And it was, in fact, so convoluted that Republicans didn't recognize this story that he was telling, which is why so many more of them continue to endorse Joe Biden and Senator Harris and continue to talk about what a disaster this president has been. I want to echo what our county electeds have said, and I spent over a decade before I came to the DNC. I was at an organization called Emily's List, which is the largest political action committee out there for women to get them elected. And, I took a job that most folks didn't think, they thought it was like a step down because I'd been in federal working, and I always have been on the elected side of things, on the campaign side. But because I'd done presidential, Senate, House, they were confused as to why I would go and do state and local work. And I said, because I am returning to the very values that made me come into politics in the first place. I need to get back to where change happens and where it happens a lot faster. I need to go where people have more access to budgets. They have the ability to move among smaller teams. Have you met the size of the U.S. Congress? And where, frankly, at the state level, there's more access to people, and people have more ability to pressure in a good way for things to move. And you are right. We began in that place as Black people. This is where we understood why we needed to elect more mayors. And then folks began changing laws to make that difficult because they realized what we realized, that we had discovered where our power really could take place and be transformational. So we're at another transformational inflection point, though. And there is something critically important about what is going to happen up and down the ballot this election. And having a powerful ticket at the top does make a difference. We all know that. We saw it in 2008. We began to see the first wave of younger elected officials, diverse electeds, coming right on along on the wings of then Senator Obama. And we have an opportunity in this moment of change to elect so many more people, along with Vice President Biden and Senator Harris, to help this continuum that needs to happen. And it would be foolish for us not to take advantage and run like the wind and get as many folks as we can elected. Not only that, but we have already heard from Senator Mitch McConnell about what he will do if he is left to be the majority leader of the U.S. Senate. And that is absolutely nothing to help Joe Biden and Senator Harris if they are elected president and vice president. And we've already seen what that looks like. That is leaving the doors wide open for Russia and other folks to interfere in our elections. That is not moving along a second stimulus bill to help people, but leaving us on the edge to wait until we are absolutely at the most critical points, leaving governors to have to fend for themselves inside of a pandemic, and aiding and abetting this president in what he has used now as his own little personal bargaining chip and threatening weapon, holding back the resources that people need in order to deal with a pandemic that he has no plan for still. So everything that we need to do is what is going to be on that ballot. And we know that oftentimes for our community, people have felt like broken promises are littered on both sides of the aisle. They're not wrong, but they're also not completely right. And what it fails to sort of take in, and what is incumbent upon us to do as leaders, is to tell folks about the difference that this new administration is going to make.
We want to welcome now and I'm sure he'll talk to us about what's going on there in Milwaukee and Wisconsin and Kenosha. Also give us an update on COVID-19, the census, what's happening with schools in terms of opening or not reopening. Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley joins us now. Welcome, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Reverend Mark. Thank you, Reverend Jackson, and the whole Rainbow Push Coalition for inviting me today, but more importantly, for all the work that you've been doing this week to fight for justice for Jacob Blake, his family, and to help this community here in southeastern Wisconsin heal. First, I want to continue to let the family of Jacob Blake know that we are going to continue to have them in our prayers. We know that his road to recovery is far from over, but we are happy that he is still fighting with us today. And as a father, it broke my heart to think of Jacob's children that night, to know they heard and or witnessed their father be shot 7 times in the back. I was crushed also when I learned that 2 people were killed by an armed militia, and 1 person was injured. So when you think about Blake's wounds and the subsequent violence that followed, these are direct results of systemic racism. For too long, we've had racist policies and practices that have entangled our institutions and produced many racially disparate outcomes. And this doesn't matter what the intentions of the people are or what they have of the folks who work within them, because we know that we need systematic change. And this is one of the reasons why Wisconsin is ranked one of the worst places to raise a Black child. While child poverty in the Black community is extremely higher compared to our white counterparts, but also why Milwaukee County ranks 71 out of the healthiest counties. And we have a total of 72, so we're second from the bottom. But our goal as a county is to change exactly that. As Milwaukee County Executive, we are going to be intentional in using racial equity lens to develop our first strategic plan in 20 years. The time for change is always now, and I stand with leaders within government and outside of it to make sure that we're committed to undoing generations of racist policies and practices that have cut short the lives of too many residents of color. And we have that power. And one of the ways that we can exercise that power is by filling out the census, which is one way to make sure that our voices is heard. Here in Milwaukee County, we've been intentional in making sure to focus on our many departments where we have large call centers. And what we're going to do is every time somebody calls us, whether that's child support, whether it's our health and human services, or just learning when the next bus is going to be coming, we want to let folks know that we want to remind them that they need to take the census. We want to communicate that with them to participate in this national-wide count and help them take the census over the phone, whether that's in English or Spanish. And when you think about the Census Bureau here in Milwaukee County, we need to focus on those particular populations that are hard to count. So whether we're talking about children under the age of 5, immigrants, a refugee population, homeless folks, Native Americans, Latinx, Hmong, Black people, people with disabilities, rural, on and on and on. We need to make sure that we're focusing on these particular populations. And we want Milwaukee County to understand that it's our diversity that really makes us who we are. It is our strength. And so the way that we want to demonstrate that to the federal government is to make sure that everybody is counted. And this is your way of making sure that your voice is heard. And when people think about the census, it's important folks understand why this is so important. The population of the state determines how many seats we have in the U.S. House of Representatives, how many federal dollars we receive. And these dollars fund education, Medicare, transportation, and more. And additionally, the census provides the legislature with fundamental data as it reshapes all of our legislative districts, which happens every 10 years. So we need a full count to make sure we have the best chance of receiving the appropriate federal resources for our neighborhoods. And as Congresswoman Jackson stated, we don't have that much time. We're looking to get an extension right now. They're cutting it short because of COVID-19. But we need to make sure that we do everything that we can to make sure that everybody fills out that census. And we have 3 different options. So you can respond online at 2020census.gov, by mail, or you can do it by phone. And that number is 844-330-2020. And you can talk to somebody in English or 12 other languages to make sure that you get counted. And now I want to briefly talk about COVID here in Milwaukee County. We are seeing a downtrend, but that doesn't mean anything. It means that we have to remain vigilant. And because what happens is if once we feel like we're over this, we're going to begin to let our guard down and loosen up. And then we're going to go back to these bad habits and the virus will rear itself again. And so I want to urge people, especially those who are participating in protests, to remember the 3 W's. And the 3 W's are wash your distance, wash your hands, and wear a mask. The decisions you make will impact how you were able to manage the virus and determine the effects on our community this fall. With the fact that we're going to have coronavirus and the flu coming up, we have to do our due diligence, making sure that we're working with our local public officials and health officials so we can continue to educate the community on ways to mitigate the spread of this virus.
To David Crowley, I'm so excited to be able to give you a fist bump virtually, having won the election. I got a lot of the updates as you were running for office back in the spring. Let me kind of jump in where we left off. There are a couple of things we have to pay attention to in this context where police reform is a national conversation. I pastor in Baltimore City, where we have the last federal consent decree that was actually approved prior to the transition of the Obama administration to the Trump administration. I am, along with some of my colleagues here, actually on the record in the consent decree suit before the federal district court as intervening plaintiffs in the event that the Justice Department gets cold feet and decide that they want to withdraw from the enforcement of the consent decree. That said, whenever reform comes up as a conversation, there are some curious things that happen when we start looking at the numbers tied to policing. Response times go up, deterrence goes down, violence begins to shift because as we saw after Freddie Gray in Baltimore, and we've seen in other places, they're seeing it in Louisville, Kentucky, even right now in the aftermath of Breonna Taylor's killing, that police often disengage from the responsibilities of enforcement, true enforcement, as a way to kind of create a crisis in the moment. And so we have to be very careful that while in some of these jurisdictions, you may even be looking at the renegotiation of FOP contracts and the like, that we cannot allow collective bargaining to be a tool to supersede and hold hostage these communities that are working on constitutional policing as the legitimate framework by which law enforcement performs its responsibilities. But now let's talk about where we are in this moment, because this is a critical moment. We know our leader, Reverend Jackson, has always been about civic engagement, right? Adding new voters to the rolls, making sure that once we register, we actually vote. Here's what I would suggest has to be part of the conversation in the age of the historical revisionism that Sister Mathoni referenced in her comments. That has been part and parcel, the ID, the identity, it's in the DNA of the current administration, is that we cannot simply translate this election into platitudes and themes. We got to get real granular when it comes to what is the agenda. How are the issues that are important to people going to be addressed by this particular vote? And it cannot simply be that we're going to tell Black folks, at least we are not Donald Trump. We got to make sure that we don't substitute one poison for a different poison that's more tolerable in difference. And I would say this because all too often when I talk to the disaffected folks who live in the community around my church in the hood, that they still question whether or not their vote really matters because they've been disappointed too many times because we never got to the agenda items that actually affect them. Reverend Jackson has been talking repeatedly, persistently about addressing the gaps, and the gaps have only gotten wider in the midst of a pandemic that has justified genocide by reckless public policy. Because there's been lack of testing, lack of follow-up, hasty impositions of rules and obligations to try to force systems that have to serve our communities to send our kids back into petri dishes. We don't have the systematic framework to be able to resist and push back. Here are the gaps that need to be addressed on the agenda. We got to address the health gap that was underlying the pandemic before it started, because we found out that those who had pre-existing conditions that seemed to scale against the interests of Black and brown people were more likely to die from COVID-19 were they to contract it. We got to deal with the education gap that got wider, because as we started having to go to virtual learning and distance learning, that the technology gaps and the limitations for households that had already been redlined by broadband access continues to be exacerbated. There's an article in the Baltimore Sun now that says that Maryland has this plan to address the rural broadband gap, to put high-speed broadband in rural areas. Here's the problem. They got a plan today, but they're not going to be able to fulfill it until next year. A lot can happen in a year. And it's not just white folks who live in rural areas. We've got to recognize that we got to address the gap. We got to make sure that school systems and HBCUs are not penalized because of the disincentive that has been imposed on the administration, by the administration, to use common sense to send students back into healthy learning environments. We got to address the housing gap. There is a foreclosure and eviction crisis looming as soon as we get out of this pandemic, because all of the folks who hold the keys to the stability of housing for so many at-risk communities, they are just waiting for the starting gun to go off so that they can begin to use the tools of hostility to put folks out of their homes, to take away family wealth, and to leave communities devoid of the ability to transfer wealth. The wealth gap is already 10-1 against our interest. It's going to get worse before it gets better. We need a plan to protect those interests and to close that gap. We've got a jobs gap. The job market just changed. We're not going to go back to normal anytime soon. What's the plan to make sure we can retool the skill sets of folks who are already on the margins in terms of employment opportunity, to make sure that they are not permanently restricted to the outside looking in and not having any real opportunity to get livable wages to take care of their families and to make sure we have vibrant communities. We got to make sure that we close the opportunity gap. And one word that kept coming up the last time we went through the election that has not been addressed in one iota by way of policy coming from this administration is infrastructure. The infrastructure in poor neighborhoods has been crumbling for decades. And in many places where our folks live, it looks like war zones due to the urban warfare that we would see in foreign countries. And so we cannot make it acceptable that we allow our communities to live in bombed out places that are littered with abandoned buildings and now being taken over by those who have infiltrated to exploit the despair in these communities. We cannot allow this to happen. And one more thing, while we're talking about this, do not be misguided about this president's intent to use violence to be a tool in this election cycle. What we saw from Rittenhouse is a test case. Let's just kind of consider it that way. Let me run it down for you. And then Mark, I'll turn it back over to you. On one hand, you have the hostility of police engaging Jacob Blake. He's getting in his car. They shoot him. He shoots him in the back 7 times. What you don't see from the second officer on the same scene dealing with the same situation is a similar response. And so we cannot reach the conclusion that at any level, Jacob Blake might have been a threat. So let's put that there. On the flip side, Rittenhouse, living in northern Illinois, gets in a car where he is driven, listen to me, driven to Kenosha to do what he does, gets back in the car to be driven back to his house. Normally, if it had been one of us, there would have been an immediate investigation into the role of the driver for accomplice liability to determine whether or not his driver should be arrested for facilitating the same process of violence that he has perpetrated. We've got to make sure that we get down to street level. We need a grassroots, people relevant, on the corner agenda that's going to say the self-interest of those who have the most at stake motivates them to get out and vote. It cannot be simply that I'm not him as a justification, because too many times we've changed the players, never changed the rules, and the outcomes were still the same, and our people got left behind. This is not the season where we need to go back to singing the blues. The blues is the deviation from standard notes with a little worrying, because the pain of the condition allows us to create a nuance in the expression of what's going on in our hearts, minds, and souls. It's not going to be adequate to come away with a blue win and still singing the blues the day after. We need to change the song. We need to rewrite the music, and we need an agenda that's going to empower the people from the bottom up.
They used to say we were just 3/5 of a man, and we had to fight to be fully recognized. Back then, being counted meant marches, pickets, jail cells, and worse. One way you can show we count in less than 10 minutes is to take the 2020 census. Be a warrior for your community. Be counted and make certain adequate funds and political representation are allocated to your state and your neighborhood. Just select one of these easy options. By phone, call 844-330-2020. Online at mycensus2020.gov, or simply mail in your survey. Never forget, you are somebody. Don't delay. Take the census today.
I am somebody.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students, July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few of jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did and what we did and how global it was. Whether speaking about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it, so give it to your friends. Read it, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. You know, we've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the US, but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select PUSH for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
Get involved with the movement.
Somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Join the movement.
If you're not a member, become a member.
I am somebody.
Fighting the most important battles for freedom and justice for all.
You made us change. Oh, trying to bring closer.
Join Rainbow Push.